Yeah. Afternoon, everybody.
I didn't know we had adverts at the beginning. That's good. I'm going to Canada.
Yep. Good luck. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks very much. We've got just an hour to get through. As is convention, I'm going to leave around 10 minutes at the end to take some of your questions. There is a lot to get through. And to start with, Zai, I'd like to show a VT of the last 12 months, so a retrospective VT. So if we can have a look at that first of all. Lovely. So I think that's worth having a look at first of all, because we are now 15 months, 16 months into your reign at BBC Three, and we're just about getting to see your commissions coming through. When you arrived, you walked in on the back of a 20% budget cut through a Quality First. You inherited another 15%. It's a difficult job, isn't it, looking after BBC Three?
Yeah, you're right. Should just leave it at that. Yes, we had a budget cut before I arrived. Then to arrive was perfect timing on my part to walk into another 15% cut. But what we've done is we've made sure that BBC Three concentrates on the things that our audience value the most. So we've absolutely protected our factual output and our comedy output. And I think just from watching that tape, you see how eclectic the content can be on BBC Three. The thing that joins it all together is it's absolutely for young adults and made with them specifically in mind.
Set against that, you've obviously, we're going to talk about some of the programmes you've had to axe, but how important are ratings for you? Because I found it quite curious that, having just said it's about young people, it's a channel for them, that there was quite a song and dance made about the Olympics transferring to BBC Three, which seemed quite a curious thing to make a boast about, really, isn't it? That we need the Olympics to give the channel a ratings push.
I don't think we did. No, we definitely didn't look at it in that respect. The Olympics is the most phenomenal, the greatest show on earth, I think it's called, and incredibly lucky and proud that we were co-hosting it with BBC One. It's done so that us and BBC One showing the Olympics and plus the 24 streams plus all of the iPlayer content is because we wanted to cover the Olympics in totality, and we also then needed to make sure that, in terms of offering the UK something to watch, that we kept BBC Two as a broadly Olympic-free zone in peak time.
But there were still stories. I mean, there were stories being put around that we're going to eclipse ITV1 on Sundays. I mean, there's quite a lot made, whether at your command or not, about BBC Three moving up ratings-wise off the back of the Olympics.
Well, the fact that we had it is brilliant. Why wouldn't you then absolutely use the opportunity of having it to promote our new programming? The difference in the figures and so on is because we're on during the day and we're not normally on during the day.
Right.
And if Tom Daly's doing the diving and 6.6 million are going to watch it, fantastic. I'd love to put a promo for our war and our new Russell Brand documentary after it. That's great. Are ratings the only measure of success for BBC and BBC Three? No. You look at appreciation indexes, you look at critical success, you look at whether we're doing something that other people aren't doing, and is there public purpose in what we're doing, is there creativity in what we're doing. For me, commissioning shows for BBC Three is incredibly important, and it does weigh heavily on my mind that this is effectively taxpayers' money, this is public money, so you have to make sure that there's a real reason behind what you're doing.
Okay. Which brings me on to one of the comedies I'd like to have a look at, Britain Unzipped, which I know is going to come back as Zipped.
It's unzipped.
It's unzipped.
Yeah, we're not zipping it up.
Well, it's quite male-friendly, isn't it, that one, as a format?
Male-friendly? I don't know if I'd call it male-friendly. I think it's knockabout and silly and fun, and part of our comedy remit is to invest in new talent, and that's two relatively new emerging talent, Greg James and Russell Kane. And we want to have more comedy entertainment on the channel so that we can develop more personalities. And I just like to leave the definition for that quite broad, which is things that make you laugh. It can be that show, which is effectively, it's our chat show, really, is what it is. A BBC Three chat show. Or it could be a dating show, or The World's Craziest Fools, which is a clip show. But they're just funny things. That's what we're trying to do in comedy entertainment. But do you want to talk about Unzipped more?
Well, look, we've got a little clip. Let's have a look at this. There's quite a lot of knob gags. I mean, it's been quite interesting for me because I've spent the last week or so just reflecting back and also having a look forward at BBC Three. And I was quite surprised by the comedy. It struck me as being very, very sort of knob gag heavy.
You've got to look at BBC Three, but you've got to look at BBC Three in totality. It's a mixed economy. You know, I can't have all of my comedies being beautifully, you know, we have got beautifully observed, wonderfully written things like Him and Her. You know, it's quite nice to have something that's knockabout and silly. It's silly done smart, actually, because you'll find that all the jokes in Britain Unzipped actually normally always refer back to our hosts, and it's the quickness of their responses which was actually quite entertaining and is why one of the things that's very engaging about it. So it's about having a breadth of different types of comedy on the channel, and you can't just pick out one and say that's what it's all about.
No. And it struck me that there was quite a lot of a sort of loaded side, a loaded magazine style to the channel.
To the whole channel?
Well, for the comedy side was that women tended to do more of the documentaries, the Cherry Healey and so forth. So that was just one of the things that I sensed. I don't know whether I got that right or not in terms of the audience, whether you are aiming your comedy at young men of a loaded generation.
Definitely not. It is that the channel is about young adults, which is 16 to 30 something, and within the two main genres we commission in, which is factual and comedy, there should be something for everyone in that age group. Okay.
Now you came from ITV2, where you had a phenomenally successful run there, and one of the questions I've been asked by people who knew I was coming to meet you is, the only way is Essex. Is there space for a format like that on BBC Three?
Probably not now, in that why would BBC Three, our internal facing line is never afraid to try new things, and that's all about, for me, innovation and creativity. And if The Only Way is Essex hadn't happened until now, would I look at it for BBC Three? I would consider it, because at the time when we did it at ITV, it felt fresh and new and interesting, and it was playing with the genre. Would I now, after there's been about 8 copycat versions of it, do it on BBC Three? No, not interested at all. I want new, interesting things. Funnily enough, we've announced we've commissioned a show called Boomtown, which is it's real people. It's a sketch show, but of real people. So it's kind of a reality sketch show. So it's in the way that Towie used the sort of soap opera dramatic form, we're using the sketch show techniques of filming and putting the show together, but with real people in their real lives. Which for me feels, okay, no one's done that with comedy. We're kind of taking it a bit, but we're absolutely moving it on.
If you were to play the game in reverse and say that you were at BBC Three before The Only Way is Essex has been conceived, could it have made it onto BBC Three? Just to get a feeling of what it is.
Possibly. It's hard to say. Yes, maybe not in its exact form that it ended up on ITV, but could it have? Yes, it would have been interesting. I'd have certainly been interested to look at it and considered it for the channel. Okay. I think I know some of the people that asked me that would be quite surprised. I think perhaps BBC Three could have been accused of being not as fun as it could be, and I think I'd like to inject a bit more fun into what we do, while still maintaining the incredibly high quality factual that we do and the original comedy. Okay.
Let's have a look at Live at the Electric, which was a format designed to bring new talent onto the screen. We've got a clip first of all. Have a look at this. It's sort of flashbacks to Keith Lemon earlier.
I've erased it from my memory.
It's quite difficult, isn't it, bringing new talent on when people don't know who they are? It's a difficult sell.
Incredibly, and the reason that show's so great and that we've recommissioned it for 2 more series is that Russell does have a constituency, and he's an impresario, and he can then lead people through a host of new comedy characters and comedians. But part of our...
It didn't rate, though, as well as...
Not everything has to. That's why it's not all about ratings, especially in the genre like comedy. It's about... Well, comedy is about 2 things. It's about but let them bed down and find an audience over time, certainly for sitcoms and comedy entertainment panel shows and things like that. They take time. When I did Juice at ITV, no one watched it till the 3rd series. And the other thing is about comedy, a supply pipeline. So a show like Live at the Electric is one part of our pipeline for new talent to come through. So we commission a thing called Feed My Funny online, which is just short form comedy. We will give £1,000 here. They're people who aren't ready for TV, but we're interested in them. We've seen them at Edinburgh. They're a sketch troupe or something. Here's some money, make some sketches for us. We'll team up with a production company who are good. then we do long form versions of that. We make 7 long form pilots that are just for online as well. Against giving people creative headroom to try things out.
Is there any benefit to go to release something that's obviously cost license payers money just to stick it online rather on a digital channel that, as it is struggling from lack of new programming through budget cuts?
Well, it's not. These aren't the most massive amounts of. It's not the majority of the budget, but you have to have a supply pipeline. If you haven't got that, you can't just have comedians coming from nowhere, who've done a year at Edinburgh and giving them a 6-part series. That would be far more irresponsible, a waste of millions of pounds. It's much better to let people get their flight hours up and to help them be part of that journey, which means you do that bit online. The online stuff we sometimes use on air. You've got Live Electric is the TV sort of expression of that. It's the new comedy bit where people we think are ready for television, but we're not expecting Live Electric to rate through the roof every week. Hopefully it will grow over the years, but the idea is that we'll find the new people who we go, yeah, you know what, you're the person we do want to give a sketch show to.
Where are all the women? That's what I want. We went through no solo females, 1 in a female group, 2 mixed groups, and the rest were 5 male solo artists, 2 male groups.
And 1 entire female group, Lady Garden. You've got Joe Wilkinson and Diane Morgan.
As a double act, it's just there wasn't one single solo female.
It's not for want of looking at that. That series is one that's going to evolve over time as well. I don't expect the entire cast who were in that show, as it was, to come back next time. It's about having a conveyor belt, actually, of people who you are giving exposure to.
Is there a problem finding? I mean, it's one of
funny
the
females.
Women. It's a debate.
We've just shown Dead Boss with Sharon Horgan, and a phenomenally high quality, brilliant show. And we've got some show called Some Girls, which comes out later this autumn, which is 5 very young, pretty much brand new emerging comedic actresses. So it's there.
But not necessarily in the stand-up Live at the Electric form.
Well, Live Electric isn't stand-up. The only stand-up on that show is Russell Kane. But everyone else is a character comic. And there are other female character comics that we're looking at for the next series, absolutely. But there weren't. Then there's a few, and there's Lady Garden is a female sketch troupe of 5, all 5. So if you count, if you want to total up for actual numbers of people, it's about the same male and female.
It's just the one group, and again, a sense that I've had from women, and also a sense I got myself that it seemed quite skewed towards males.
Not intentionally.
No. Okay. Moving on to talent generally on BBC Three. Do you worry that you're going to create talent only to see them run out the door to Stuart Murphy and his big checkbook, or elsewhere?
Is that euphemism? Okay, his big checkbook. Oh, sorry.
He's certainly not shy about being upfront about his 600 million quid, is he?
Am I worried about that? Not so much. I think
What about the BBC One taking your signings off you?
I think I'd love that. I think if we've developed people to the extent where, in a Little Britain or Gavin and Stacey way, that their shows are so popular that they can graduate to be in the biggest channel in the UK, that's a phenomenal success. And then also, for me, that frees up money I can spend on more new people, which is what I'm really passionate and interested in doing. In terms of Sky, competition is good. We're in a very different place to Sky in terms of BBC Three, in that it's new talent. Sky is about Russell or James Corden or Davina McCall. It's about big names selling boxes and posters.
When there was quite a lot of fighting talk when you first come. Oh, no, it's a fair comment. There's quite
in
a lot
my
of
opinion.
Who do you have? Which other channels do you have in your line of sight? Who do you want to beat? If there must be that competitive urge.
There's a competitive set of channels that you would consider that we are competing. That people, commentators would consider we are competing against, such as E4s, ITV2s, Sky Ones, also Channel 4. But in terms of the product we make and we put out, the digitals, none of those digitals are doing the same sort of thing as we are. The amount of serious subject matter, factual documentaries, current affairs that we make just aren't made by our competitors there. So that's sometimes why I look at Channel 4 more and say, in terms of stories and content, maybe a bit more there. But it's not. We don't look at it in competing, across the board in that way. Because Channel 4 isn't about. It's a bit of a younger channel, but it's much older than BBC Three. We're so targeted on our audience.
Now, the word synergy has been used a lot in terms of BBC Three's relationship with One, 4 with 2. What does that actually mean? to you as a controller of BBC Three, that your good ideas, you grow them up and they get taken away? I mean, synergy means it works both ways, doesn't it?
I don't know if there's well, people on their way. Their way retiring from.
You're off to BBC Three.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. That kind of ghetto attitude. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
What do you get out of the relationship?
Well, you know, the relationship across having a portfolio of channels means you can talk about what's on them. You know, we get to put a shop window on BBC One you know, saying turnover now on BBC Three, and there is Our War, there is Cuckoo, there is Bad Education. It's just starting. You know, so we can cross-promote people around the portfolio of channels. So that's one huge benefit. In terms of talent moving to BBC One, I've already said, great. In terms of commissioning shows for BBC Three, they are commissioned completely with our audience in mind. I don't believe that very often, wonderful as it was, Little Britain and Gavin Stacey, that you will get a show lock, stock and barrel moving from BBC Three to One. In terms of comedy, for example, much more likely that a piece of talent, a writer or director will then move on and make a show for BBC One. In fact, we do reuse a lot of our stuff on BBC One. You know, a lot of our documentaries and current affairs are repeated at 22:35 on BBC One.
Let's talk about documentaries and current affairs. I mean, a lot of the fuck me titles, they've all gone, haven't they?
That was 4 years before I joined, and it was before Danny. It was all before Danny.
Does it still haunt you?
It has a long tail, that obviously, which is annoying. But then, you know, it was like 4 titles for 4 years, five and a half years ago. People just need to move on. It's just smacks of lazy journalism.
The titles change as the content changes. Yes, we'll find
so far. Can't see Paul.
You're looking for the Daily Mail. I'm sure they'll be looking for you. You've got Cherry Healey, you've got Stacey. These are again. Just perceiving this division between comedy seeming to be more directed towards men, the documentary is slightly more female-friendly, I mean, on the Fact Ent side.
I think, well, Total TV is more female anyway, but I don't see it like that. Reggie Yates has made a Tourette's 3-part documentary for us. We just had Russell Brand looking at addiction. Our War, I don't think you can say is a particularly female-friendly documentary. Is a brilliant documentary about soldiers in Afghanistan, all of whom are, you know, the average age of a soldier in Afghanistan is 21.
So and it's using their own video footage as worth.
And that's the key thing on most, you know, you mentioned Stacey and Cherry. They're brilliant, and I love having them on the channel. They don't do huge amount of hours. They do sort of about 6 hours each a year. The vast majority of the factual on BBC Three is unmediated. It is contributor and expert led. So it's our viewers in their words, and that's why Our War is a perfect example of that.
And speaking to you briefly before we came on the stage here, I was quite surprised to hear you're quite an advocate of the more serious documentary.
I'm glad. I think BBC Three shouldn't be afraid of meaty subject areas. I think we should, as long as they are relevant for our audience and not niche, as long as they are, you know, important.
So the soldiers being within the age range profile in Our War is critical.
People said during the first series of Our War, oh, why wasn't it on BBC One? Because all the contributors in that were 18, 19, 21. That's why it was absolutely a BBC. That's why we commissioned it for BBC Three.
Is it a difficult? I think it's quite a difficult sell with drama taking more of a backseat, and we'll get onto some girls in more depth in a moment. Is it quite a difficult sell, selling hard documentaries next to quite sort of leery comedy with very little else in between?
Well, I wouldn't call it leery comedy, but I think there's a misconception with young adults that you need to dumb down and talk to them in a particularly different way. You need to talk.
Cherry Healey does dumb down, doesn't she? She's a posh public school girl who goes and hangs around with clueless people.
Clueless people. I don't recognise that from her series. What we've got there is. God, you throw me with that image of poor Cherry. But it's about talking to our viewers in a voice that they recognise and understand, which means you're giving them a voice. So, most of the media, or a large amount of the media, portrays the youth as being, in a more negative way. BBC Three is there to shout for them, to be on their side, and to positively engage with them, and also to look at subject matter which might be, more meaty. It's not just Snog, Marry, Avoid. It is incredible. There's numerous documentaries.
What was that title again?
Snog, Marry, Avoid, which I'm very proud of. As a very easy win for me when I took over the channel would be to have, in terms of the public perception and opinion former perception, would be to not have recommissioned that show. Yeah. But it's a make-under show. That's exactly the kind of thing BBC Three should be doing. Current affairs and documentaries. We've got My Murder, Can We Trust the Police, Britain's Gay Footballers. I've written them because there's so many there that we've done. There's programs on the Middle East.
Can we expect to see more and more serious documentaries coming through? I mean, I just got the sense from Our War that you've got the bit between your teeth on that.
Well, I prefer it when we're in a subject matter which feels meaty.
Right.
I'm less comfortable in the very frivolous single subject matters. It doesn't mean, but there's still a place for features. Features are also important, which is the kind of show that Cherry does.
What about what about politics? Because from Young Question Time to Free Speech, with Jake Humphrey taking over from Richard Bacon, does that fit comfortably? Because it's difficult to sell politics to young people. I think any politician would tell you that. Do you think you've got it right this time with free speech?
I think we're getting it right with free speech. There'll be I think going to reinvigorate the set and change that a lot. I think with Young Voters Question Time, very good show as it was, it looked a bit like we kind of just nicked the grown-ups studio for a bit. So I want it to feel much more like...
Free speech is nicking the school gym, by comparison, isn't it?
Won't necessarily always look like that from now on. But so I want it to look like a big, proper show, and it is, and it will debate serious issues. But we don't just look at politics in that, we've expanded that from doing 4 Young Voters Question Times a year. Now we're doing 12 free speeches a year. Right. We also look at politics in lots of most of our documentaries and our current affairs programming are looking at some form of political single issue, or quite a lot of them are. And young people are interested in politics. They're just not that interested in the political system and the way it's mostly reported. If you look at a show like we aired last night called The Revolution We Televised, that's a comedy entertainment show. It's satire, but satire is an equally valid way of bringing politics to the fore. True enough.
So, but in terms of free speech, because again, it hasn't rated as well as might have been expected. I mean, but you're going to stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't have any particular. We make shows because we want people to watch them. Yes, absolutely.
So if the ratings for so many of these shows are down on what was expected, they're not working. Or I mean,
they're not down on what's expected. They're not. The free speech is up on the slot average for Young Voters Question Time before. No. So it's doing slowly doing better and better. Yeah. Okay. If things are plummeting downwards, we'll be diving in there and open heart surgery and looking at why and what can we do.
Okay.
But in terms of having a mixed economy for BBC Three and covering lots of different areas, not just comedy, but also the whole span of factual, which is Our War to Don't Tell the Bride via Junior Doctors, it's important that we do all of those.
Okay. What about the shows you did have to swing the axe on? The one I've been asked more about than any are The Fates. So a BAFTA award-winning show. You would have thought a great flagship for BBC Three, and just too expensive, or?
Well, there's a few things there. It's in terms of DQF, which is the licence fee cuts and how we get to them.
And I'm right in thinking BBC Three has borne the biggest brunt of those pro rata.
Well, pro rata, it's BBC Three and 4. I think have both had 15%. We decided on BBC Three to remove all pre-watershed commissioning. We decided to take our drama commissioning down slowly over the years. And we also decided we were definitely going to ring-fence our factual and our comedy, because you have to maintain a critical mass to be relevant to the audience of those shows.
But you still must have nickel to see drama go down when you're a channel controller.
Yeah, I mean, it's when the reinvestment happens, which is going to be hopefully happening for 2014 onwards, I'm obviously there banging the drum for BBC Three saying, can I have some more money for some more drama, please? That's definitely what I'm doing. The Fades was a really high-quality show, as testament from winning a BAFTA, it didn't actually engage the young adult audience hugely. It had quite low shares for young share. And the reality is that, coupled with the financial reality, meant it couldn't come back. So are you a big Fades fan?
Well, I thought it was a good show, and I guess I'm thinking, well, yeah, we're all here contributing to a BBC, and then you have a drama that did resonate with people, but not quite the right ones that fit this fairly narrow formula for BBC Three, and it seems.
I think it's quite broad, isn't it? 16-34 is pretty huge as an age range.
So where was it not appealing to people? At what age?
It was much older. It was much older. It was much older.
As old as me.
I think you kind of, answered your own question.
So am I not wanted on BBC Three?
We'll happily take any viewer who wants to watch, but we're making shows with that young adult audience in mind.
Okay.
And across the totality of the BBC, you've got £3.6 billion of licence fee a year. BBC Three costs, well, my programme budget that I'm in charge of is £60 million. So that is a fraction of it that's being put towards young adults. I'd say we should have more, as you'd expect me to, but
Doctor Who Confidential, another one where I'm thinking synergy, and you've got Doctor Who doing great business for the BBC, and BBC One, it's never, and here you have a lovely synergetic show.
You're Whovian as well?
No, I'm not actually. No. But it seems, I thought, well, this is the definition of synergy. You're doing a complementary show.
Yeah. It's also on pre-Watershed, and we decided pre-Watershed was an area we would pull back from. So that was the main reason we didn't make Doctor Who Confidential anymore. Also, to be honest with you, Doctor Who Confidential had run for 6 series. It's a show about a show. There wasn't much more to tell you about how they make Doctor Who after 6 series of it.
That's true. Very true.
When I'm, when I've got a limited amount of money to spend, I've got to fire it and make it every pound count.
But when you've got something like that, it's clearly is synergy. That's clearly what certainly what I understand synergy to be.
But BBC Three needs to stand on its own 2 feet. It needs to have unique programming, original unique programming. I do not want the BBC Three to make lots of extension shows a la ITV2. It's not what we're about.
Okay. Just go the age thing. So, bad education. How does that rate on an age basis?
Well, it does very well for 1634s. It does about, I think, this is off the top of my head, like a 10% share of 1634s, which is very good.
Huge. And I imagine it does fairly well for people over 34 as well. Or is that just me?
Well, yeah, I think it does. Anything that gets that, you've got 1 million viewers on, more or less 1 million viewers on Tuesday night. Anything that does that well always brings in quite a lot of different people. But its core also was actually incredibly young as well.
You must have been very pleased when you got Jack Whitehall to do that.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's people would say, he's not exactly new talent, but it's the first time he's written a sitcom. So I'm quite happy to have people who are maybe already emerged, who are doing something different as well as totally brand new people.
So if there are young people out there with brilliant ideas, how are they going to get onto BBC Three then? What is their route? True new talent.
Well,
is it online to do? Is that?
We've got two routes online. One is Feed My Funny, which means we commission writers and performers to make short form comedy, and then we can give them more to make long form, and there's that route for comedy. And then with Factual, we make 6 films a year with first time directors, and we put them in 9 o'clock on peak time on BBC Three. And we're going to expand that to also have an online element to it as well, where we can help Factual producers and filmmakers make shorter films.
For the online funnies, can I just ask out of journalistic curiosity what the budget kind of thing is that BBC Three puts out for those?
For the Feed My Funny? Yeah. For short form, it's about, it's less than £200,000. It's not a huge amount of money.
Gosh.
Across a year.
Okay.
Across a year, and the amount that you make across a year, that we make lots of minutes for that.
Are there, I mean, looking around trying to get a flavour of what turns you on, what out there at the moment on other channels would you like to have brought over to BBC Three, or would you like to have called your own?
Yeah, but I'd much rather we make our own things. I'd like us to have a successful ongoing comedy entertainment piece, which I hope Unzipped will be. Possibly, it would be nice if BBC Three could have a panel show where we could have, new comics having a platform. Those are two things I'm interested in doing. I've got lots of ideas. There are ideas in the pipeline that are coming through, but there's nothing that I look at and go, God, well, we had to have had that.
Is that the freedom to have an open mind? Is that what appealed to you about the BBC Three job from ITV2, where you're incredibly successful there, but presumably under a lot more commercial pressure?
There is real creative freedom at the BBC. I've said it before, but I could go in and go, let's make some asparagus programmes, and people would start to look at it, which is a bit bonkers. But it's obviously I'm not going to do that. Maybe Stuart would have done that. You've got absolute creative freedom there, and not having commercial pressures mean you can make shows, and particularly in areas like comedy, let them bed down, let them grow, let people find them.
Looking ahead now to some of the programmes you've got in the offing, what are you most excited about that people have yet to see?
This autumn, Bad Education's already on air. Revolution Will Be Televised started last night. I love both those two shows. I think they're exactly where I want comedy and Comedy Ent to be. Revolution Will Be Televised, is unashamedly a satire and political show, and for two unknown pieces of talent doing that kind of show to get nearly 600,000 viewers last night and then another 400,000 at midnight is pretty impressive, and I'm quite happy with that. There's we've got a show called Conspiracy Coach Trip coming up, which is, we did a 9/11 one last year, a single. We're making 3 new ones, which is where we take conspiracy theorists on a coach with Andrew Maxwell, who then tries to debunk their conspiracies. We've got a Body Beautiful season, which is a body image season. So having seasons, which factual seasons where we group programs together, is really important for me. We're doing that one around November this year, and then we've got one about birthing coming up for beginning of March next year, which has got a new series called My Man Is My Midwife, with sort of promoting men to take far more active roles in the delivery of their children.
Actually helping with the delivery.
As far as is possible, as far as they can be got there. So, some are very active catching the baby, some are still going like that. But that's a really great sort of fact ent piece. That whole season's also got some one-offs in it. We've got Boomtown that I've mentioned earlier, which is just an experimental comedy that is a bit bonkers.
Because we've got a New Bits VT. So we'll have a look at the New Bits VT and talk some more after this. So we saw a bit of Some Girls there, and far be it for me to plug it, but there is a screening going on later on. I've been lucky enough to see one of the episodes. I reckon you've got a hit on your hands there. That would be my best guess. What was it about the particular qualities of that drama that appealed to you?
It's a sitcom. It's a half hour. It's 5 young girls at school and a school football team, and it's just when we read the script, I really enjoyed it. I love the characters. They really came through, and it felt authentic, quick and funny, but charming, and it had warmth to it as well. And then we had a read through with the actresses, and they were phenomenal. These 5 girls just knocked it out of the park, and we didn't, I think one role was changed a bit, but virtually nearly all of them stayed as they are. They got it right straight off. They're all, brand new, emerging comedy actors.
Do you feel confident about it?
I think it's a really high quality good piece of work, funny piece of work. Do I think anyone will watch it? I don't. With series 1s of these things, you never can tell.
You must want this, because it's the one thing I guess that's still happening is your big ratings hit. And this,
obviously you hope that, but
yeah.
It'll take time. These things do take time. It might not be till season 3 of Some Girls that it pops and gets 1 million viewers. We're not always as lucky as Bad Education, where we got 1 million straight off. Cuckoo, likewise in that tape. It's quite hard to get a sense of that show from that
clip.
Tell
us a bit more about the premise.
A young girl goes on her gap year, comes back and marries. Is married and is married to Cuckoo, who's the young girl's played by Tamla from The Inbetweeners, and boy is Andy Samberg, who's in Saturday Night Live. The girl's mum and dad are Greg Davis and Helen Baxendale, and then they all move in there, and Dad and Cuckoo hate each other. It's real. It's got gag, but it's really warm and charming. That will start in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. So those 3 sitcoms, Bad Education, Cuckoo, Some Girls, is kind of a nice breadth to what we're doing. Be Your Own Boss, which is Richard Reed, who's one of the co-founders of Innocent Smoothies, risking £1 million of his own money.
So Real Jeopardy, which is one of the things I know you were keen to see in a show like that.
In new British young entrepreneurs. It's a perfect BBC Three show.
But it is just The Apprentice with Real Jeopardy, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit more like the end of Dragon's Den, and then we actually stay with them. So you see them form the business, and he helps them and mentors them. So it's not just the pitch. It's the pitch, and it's all the aftermath that you never see on Dragon's Den.
Talk about looking at that. I mean, you as a controller must be under pressure. We're all under pressure. But where does your pressure come from? What is your primary source of pressure? Is it from the BBC trying to get a hit? Is it from an audience that's there, and it's still written about fairly often? BBC Three. What is the BBC doing with our licence payers' money over there? What is the pressure, the most telling pressure on you?
Entertaining my 10-month-old daughter. It's far more pressurised than the BBC. There is a weight. In all seriousness, there is a weight on your shoulders, which is, as I said before, this is licence fee payers' money, so it's got to be good. It's got to live up to BBC ideals and expectations. The BBC is definitely different to the other channels out there. People have an expectation that everything will be of a very high quality, will be right. Journalistically, have absolute integrity in what you're doing.
Are you under pressure to win Channel of the Year? With a hat trick, wouldn't it? 3 in a row. If you
I think for this one, but those things are nice. We never know what's going to happen with them. It's a committee room of very jaded individuals, and then all the delegates here, and I hope we win, but you just never know. And I've come less worried about awards as time's gone on. They're lovely to have, but I don't understand how they work necessarily, unless we win, in which case they're very, very important. But I'd rather have people watching it, and it's like our war's the perfect storm. Rating success, huge public service, critical success. It's got it all. So wherever we can, more of that.
Last question for me, and it's the one that you're probably sick of hearing more than anything. It is that, do you still have to justify BBC Three to the general public when you go out and about and people know who you do? Why is there a BBC Three? Do you feel that you have to make a case for it?
When I joined, I was hoping that I didn't have to. I've realised that because I thought that had been laid to rest. DQF raised it all up again and gave it stirred the pot, but I'm hoping that it has it's dissipated. I don't get asked it as often as I used to, certainly, but when I'm doing interviews and things like that, I'm hoping it's put to rest. We spend a relatively small amount of money on BBC Three, and you get bloody good value for it.
Okay, nice talking to you.
And you.
Any questions for Zai? Can I see you? Can we see? Nothing at all. Oh, there's somebody at the very back there.
Hello. You talked a bit about the fades and why, unfortunately, that couldn't come back. What do you think a drama needs to work on the network?
Oh, God. We've got a lot less drama, so there's not going to be those opportunities of serendipity, which you do sometimes get with comedy, where you can say, let's risk this and try that. If you're doing 1 or 2 a year, it's pretty hairy. What does it need? What all dramas need: amazing characters, brilliant plots. It needs to feel like the dialogue is absolutely for young adults. It needs to feel genuine. I think actually I quite like a bit of humour thrown in there. Being human is brilliant in that it's got all of those things. And actually BBC Three is a place where you're more likely to get away a sort of a higher concept show. I think that audience finds that much more accessible.
Okay. Anything else? Chat down here for the microphone. While we're passing the microphones around, can I ask you something really cheeky?
Something else.
Mark Thompson, George Entwistle. Do you have any apprehensions about what Mr. Entwistle is going to do when he comes in as Director General? Do you think this could herald a good time for BBC Three?
I hope so. Yeah, George has been my boss for the last year and a half, and George is one of the people who interviewed me for the job, and I think he's been a brilliant boss, and I think he'll be an amazing Director General.
More money?
Well, for me personally,
no, for the
nice.
channel, not for you.
Where's my money? I want something out of this. I'm absolutely. That's part of my job is to bang the drum for BBC Three within the BBC, and that is actually very important because you could easily get lost. So you have to shout. Yeah, but I'd love us to get more money. I'll keep trying.
Got the mic there.
How important is regional identity on BBC Three? I'm thinking Pramface is filmed in Edinburgh, but it's not necessarily set or based in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Will we see Scottish, Irish shows on BBC Three?
It's a good question. I mean, in terms of the portrayal of the UK, and when we look at the figures, BBC Three does a very good job. Our share of the UK is replicated when you look at each of the nations and regions. So we've got a very good share in outside of London. So across the BBC portfolio, we're one of the better ones at attracting share across the UK, not just having it in one pocket here or there. In terms of a show feeling like it is Scottish or Irish, I'm less worried about that and more that it is relevant for our audience. We've reshown some things like Gary Tank Commander. Maybe it felt like it was too Scottish and for our audience to engage in a big way.
Will the tone or nature change if and when you go to Salford?
That's due to happen at the end of 2016, I think, so far too far away for me to be able to think about yet. I'm not exactly on sort of right move.
Right, okay. Anything else? Okay. Chat down there.
Hello.
Mr. Charlotte.
Jonathan Shallett from Raw Global. Every year, Zai, BBC One gets sort of encouraged to bring back Top of the Pops every time they bring off, one series or one episode for Christmas. It would strike me with the demographic of Top of the Pops, that's more BBC Three than BBC One. So I'm not asking you particularly about Top of the Pops, but in terms of music for the generation you target, where music is very important to that generation, is there going to be, where does music sit in your future programming plans?
Well, music is a very important part of our audience's lives. In terms of music programming, we do a lot of live music programming, so we'll be at Leeds Reading this weekend. Glastonbury, when it's back next year, we did the Hackney Festival, we do Tea in the Park. So live music events, BBC Three has a very, very healthy summer of them every year. Outside of that, I'm not really looking at profiles of bands or a music show per se, because I think it's better for us to do music in other shows. So I'd happily look at music stars being on Unzipped and coming in, and music via entertainment shows is more interesting to me.
So comedy is more important than music to you, or to your audience?
I think in terms of television, our audience don't consume music shows like that anymore. If they want to know about music, they look at it, they get exactly what they want via online. They don't want a general music show. Music gets very niche very quickly, and BBC Three is about providing programming for all 1634s.
Okay.
When it comes to building audiences and keeping audiences, things like, for example, the Amal Fashanu programme going to Denver killings recently, of the Denver Batman killer, which was fantastic, by the way. Are you going to, where does it sit, those one-off films versus series, in terms of building audiences and justifying the way money is spent to build long-term audiences?
Well, I love that we do one-off documentaries, and we will be continuing to do them. More and more, we will try to have factual seasons, bringing moments together around themes. So body image, birthing, we did a Criminal Britain one. So it's easier then to promote them as a single entity and to get to be able to tell viewers about them. But we're still going to do one-offs about important subjects as and when they happen, and doing a quick turnaround one like the one about the Batman shootings, I thought was absolutely right for us to. 11 of those 12 victims are all under 25. It's a BBC Three-ish thing.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? I've only got one contact lens in, so please keep your arm up for a while. Nothing. Oh, yes, there we go. Lady down there.
Is there any space left in the birthing season, Zai?
That's fully commissioned, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I thought for a moment you were going to ask, is there any space left in the birthing pool? And I thought that would be a whole new subject. Anything else? Anything else? Lady down there.
Can you give any more detail about that you said that the new directors, factual directors, there might be an opportunity for them to do stuff online. Can you give any more detail about
we haven't launched that yet. We're just putting together, we're trying to mirror what we've done with comedy as for factual.
Do we know roughly when that might be?
Well, I'm hoping in the next 6 months it will be up and running. But it's but the Young Directors Scheme is absolutely up and running now, and you can go to the BBC commissioning site, and it's called Fresh, and apply. New first-time directors can apply to be on that. So you come with a film or an idea to that.
Okay. Anything else? Is your name from the future?
I don't know. I don't know.
Keith's just not going to, the whole Keith Lemon is just not going to let it go, is he?
No, or Ali Jones. That was nice.
Did you enjoy your time on Celebrity Juice?
No,
earlier?
not at all.
Not at all.
Could you not tell?
Well, no, I didn't. I just saw you come in
yeah.
afterwards, and you looked like you'd had an ordeal, which is what I'd expected.
The really annoying thing is I couldn't say no to them because I sat on the other side of that so many times going, get him to do that, do this. And it's like, oh, you've got to front it up when you're asked.
So, but you survived all right.
Yeah, I think Peter got more of the brunt.
Is that going to appear on video, do we know, through the MediaGuardian?
I think every other word is unbroadcastable, isn't it? From what...
Zai, unless we've got anything else, last look round. No, I will say Zai Bennett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
and
you.
good luck with the next week.
Thanks a lot.